So happy New Year. January 2025. I cannot believe I'm recording this podcast and it is January 21st already. Already half of the month, maybe a little more than half the month, has flown by. I don't know why. Time seems to be moving so quickly, but I've been trying to remedy that. I've been in a nesting mindset lately, taking advantage of the beautiful month of January, which many people don't like. They don't like January because it's after the holidays. It's kind of a letdown. People say snow doesn't look as pretty anymore. I don't understand how beautiful snow doesn't look as pretty anymore. Nothing like driving with snow flurries all over. I feel like I'm in a snow globe, but I digress. So come nest with me for a little bit here at the Wish House. I'm Chris Spinner, and positivity and possibility is on the menu today. So let's go. You know, I posted this meme the other day. I'm going to read it to you. Give you a little positivity here around the snow. It says, if you choose not to find joy in the snow, you will have less joy in your life, but still the same amount of snow. Something to think about. Something to think about indeed. Look around, find the joy. Listen, I love the four seasons. I say it all the time. I would not want to live where I didn't have them. I know all the ups and downs. We don't enjoy shoveling snow. It's too cold. I actually enjoy the cold. I would prefer cold to hot. But I don't hate the summer. I simply like the change of the seasons every 3 months. It's basically what we do. We get to experience 4 different, beautiful, contrasting weather seasons with all of the joys, the activities that come along with it bring. We have 3 months of a thing, and then I really invest myself in seeing that and enjoying that and staying present is that. I think the more you can own those ideas, staying present, finding the joy, and seeing the beauty in it, it just transfers into gratefulness. And gratefulness just transfers into leading a more joy-filled life. And gratefulness and a joy-filled spirit and pieces of bliss in your day are going to help you attract what you're looking for. It gives you the armor that you need. You won't feel so low. You won't feel so depressed. So there's some food for thought, some tips. You don't have to do anything to access this mindset except simply think about it. I truly live my life like that. And right now, we're in snowy winter in my neck of the woods, and I am the happier for it. I have been, as I said, in a nesting mindset. I read this article, and it said that our human nature is to rest in the winter months. It said we mirror nature. Human beings mirror nature. You know, the leaves fall off the trees, and the animals are in hibernation, and the snow falls in such a silent fashion, and there's no renewal yet. So we as human beings are supposed to take that time as well to rest and nest and get ready for our renewal as the renewal of spring is coming. It's our alignment with nature. And it's far more important than we know. It's far more specific than we know. And so for this year, for the first time, I really embodied that idea. I've read it before and I've known it before. And I've tried to incorporate it in other years, but I'm finding myself in a position now at this point in my journey that I can take some time to nest and rest because I'm a very busy person and my days are filled. But I have been attempting to keep the schedule as clear as possible. And I've also been taking extra time to kind of sleep in, something I really have not had the opportunity to do in forever. So I'm getting up a little later. And I'm trying to assuage the guilt that comes along with that. I come from a family where there's no sleeping in. That wasn't a thing, and it's ingrained in my head. The comedian Sebastian Maniscalco does a hilarious bit about that. And, of course, he references the Italian upbringing, and that's me too, you know. The Italian upbringing, there's no sleeping in an Italian family. But probably generational, you know. My parents didn't understand the sleeping in. And I venture to say that my grandfather on my mother's side wouldn't have been able to handle me with the sleeping in. Meanwhile, you'd think I was sleeping in till like noon. The latest I've slept is 8:30 in the morning, but that really feels like half the day has gone. But this little trend is what's happening now, and it's going to have to go away soon. I have to come out of my little nesting, sleep in coziness at some point because there's lots of stuff on the horizon. But right now, I'm enjoying this little newfound freedom, if you will. So there's my update on how my new year is going. My kind of silent resolutions have been unfolding. And within that, I'm hoping that you find a little Chrislosophy to think about as your new year unfolds, thinking about staying grateful, thinking about staying present, thinking about finding those little bits of joy in your day, thinking about finding some positivity and accessing some possibilities. So happy new year, and I hope that you're enjoying a stretch of good fortune and good things happening in this part of your journey. So the other day, I saw this announcement. It said that the TV show Happy Days had premiered 51 years ago on the day I read that announcement. 51 years ago. 51. I can't keep repeating that. Can't stop repeating that. 51 years ago. It's incredulous to me. I immediately took to my social media and I started posting my thoughts on how could it be 51 years? 51. I mean, first of all, I cannot believe that I'm old enough to have something in my actual conscious childhood or adolescence that could be 51 years ago. 51 years ago feels so far away, like 51 years ago could have been the JFK assassination, but that was 62 years ago, and that's completely mind-blowing because I was around for that as well. Now, I was only 5, and I don't remember much of it. I have some vague memories of those couple of days in our home, but Happy Days in 1974, I was full-fledged teenager. I was in my second year of high school, and that show is intrinsically linked to my teenage years. I was obsessed. I mean, first of all, I was in love with Henry Winkler. I think I still am. And you know that I have a quest. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you're finding out now. I have a quest to interview Henry Winkler. The quest has never ended. And so I've manifested it. I say it out loud all of the time because I do believe I'm going to have the opportunity someday to do that. But outside of the crush on Henry Winkler, that was not really the sustaining force of my obsession with Happy Days. I just loved the whole feel of that 50s culture. As an adult now, I think I know why that Cunningham home and the friends that they encountered and the life that they led was so attractive to me. And that's another conversation. But regardless, I patterned my entire teenage years after Happy Days. I mean, I should have brought with me my high school yearbook so I could read to you some of the comments that are in there because it's all about Fonzie and all about Happy Days. I lived a parallel life with that show. And if you are in and around my age, you'll remember that in the 70s, the 50s had a resurgence. You know, we had American Graffiti, and that made it all the more interesting to latch onto a show like Happy Days. The lifestyle and the culture of the 50s was brought to life in the 70s in an odd way, and then closed the decades with Grease being the number one movie musical. So was that 78, maybe 79? But we had a love affair in the 70s with the 50s, just to say. And I was the number one fan of that resurgence. I absolutely loved it. But when I saw 51 years, it really was the first time for me that I owned my own length of years, which sounds crazy, right? Because I've seen countless memes and lists and songs that are 50 years old, or do you remember the blizzard of 78? But for all of that content that has been coming toward me, this was the announcement that I owned that made me take a breath, that made me kind of sit back for a second and say, wow, I am going to be 67 years old in June, and I was conscious for the premiere of Happy Days. And then I realized there are more years in my rearview mirror than there are in my windshield. I didn't make up that statement, but I love that. And I will not live 51 more years. So right now you're listening and saying, okay, this is taking a little bit of a depressing turn, but it really is not. That kind of empowered me. I think I've said this before. I'm not an age person. And I think I got that talent, if you will, from my mom. She wasn't an age person either. She lived till 95. We lost her last April of 24, not even a year yet. She believed that she lived to 95 because she wasn't a person that ever considered herself old. She used to say all of the time, I'm never going to get old. And that is why I believe the last few years of her life were so difficult for her, because she ended up in those last 2 years kind of living the life of what she perceived was an old lady. You know, she had some health issues, which brought her to a nursing community. She was in a wheelchair for her last couple of years. And if you knew my mom, the thought of a wheelchair in her life just did not compute. I love that statement. Remember, do you guys remember Lost in Space? When the robot would say, it does not compute. Well, age and wheelchairs just did not compute for my mom. She was always a trim, short, little, wiry gal who lived a very vibrant life in her own right. She wasn't a big traveler or anything like that, but she was very active in her community and was out all of the time. She loved to shop, and she never drove. We had a very good friend who we lost to COVID, who took her everywhere. She was considerably younger than my mom. She was about 20 years, I think, younger than my mom, and maybe 10 years older than me. But we lost our dear Gloria in the pandemic due to COVID in the first round. But my mom was still literally buzzing around at 90 years old. And she had multiple operations in her very senior years. She had a big heart operation when she was 88. She had her knees done at 80. She broke her hip. She fractured something else in her late 80s and early 90s. And in all of those instances, she bounced back from rehab in record time until she was about 92, 93. And that was the beginning of the move toward what would prove to be the end of her life. But we were very grateful because my mom had her mind to the end. And we were blessed by that because she was really able to give us sage wisdom and give us her philosophy on what life is about. I was prepared for her passing. Many people say I handled it well, and I continue to handle it well, but I was prepared. I knew it was coming. Something like that happens. The minute it happens, the memories flood back, and it seems like you've only known that person 10 minutes. But that's not the case. My dad's gone. My brother's gone. I'm the only one left of the four of us. So I was prepared, and I was prepared to get myself ready for that new role of being, they call it the orphan, and to be able to sit now in my own space and contemplate the many lessons I learned, not only from her very long life, but from how I reacted to that, being a partner in that aging, if you will. And one of the top 5 lessons that I learned real high up there is I'm not going to get old. That's the mantra, I'm not going to get old. I don't see aging as old. It's not a denial or a delusion. I use that statement because that was my mom. So I'm going to use it as my mantra. I know my age, and I do know that each year I'm aging. I'm getting older, but I'm blessed to know so many people who are like my mom, still vibrantly living, traveling, contributing, serving well into their late 80s. And that's me all the way. That's my mindset all the way. I don't ever sit and think, oh, I'm this age and now it's time to blank. No, I just keep living and dressing and doing activities that speak to what I want to do and not the age I am. So I thought a little bit on this week after that kind of aha, happy days moment. And I thought, well, and so here are my thoughts with the intention that this mindset can help you, especially if you're in my age group, but not exclusive of any other age group. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to be 67, and in 20 years, I'll be 87. And knowing so many people that are 87, watching my own mom reach 87 in a very active way, I decided that I have 20 years to make all my dreams come true. And yes, I still have dreams at age 67. Well, I'm 66, but I'm going to be at 67 in June. So let's just use 67. So yeah, I do still have dreams, lots of them. I have dreams at 67, really big dreams. And why shouldn't I? And shame on you if you do not. So I'm going to ask you the same question I ask myself. What are you going to do with the next 20 years of your life? Do you realize how long 20 years is? Think about it. Think about a child and what goes on in the first 20 years of life. It's such a really very long time. Like 20 years ago, I was 47. 47. Seems like a baby now. All of that life has been lived, and there's more life on the horizon. And I'm not just saying it's over at 87. I just said the other day I'm living to 95 like my mom, and I'll reassess at 87. But I figure by 87, I could pretty much slow down and then reap the benefits of what I have created in the past 20 years. So I have a vision for that too. I see myself sitting around with big rings on, like my elementary school teacher, elementary school principal, if you will, Miss Posen. Miss Posen had really big rings and nice manicures on her elderly hands. I don't know why that stuck with me all of these years, but I'm going to get big rings like Miss Posen, and I'm going to have good manicures, and I'm going to sit around with a shawl and share my wisdom and give sage advice and regale the tales of the past 20 years. And then I will have a little under 10 years to see what life brings me. I don't know. I might go longer than 95 years. But that's my plan, and I'm sticking to it. And why am I telling you my plan? Because I think in my plan, you might find some inspiration. You might find some motivation. But most importantly, you might buy into my make a good story theory, which I've mentioned before, but I'm going to mention again right now in case you missed it the first few times. My make a good story theory is that we don't know what's coming ahead. We have no idea. So if we're going to make up a story about it to live by, why don't we make up a good story? Why are we constantly making up negative stories? We do this every single day. We assume the worst. We're constantly filled with fear. Why are we constantly doing that? Why are we constantly so down on ourselves? Think about just the littlest thing. We're going to go on vacation. We're going to go to a place where it could possibly have, say we're going south, okay? It could possibly have some tropical rainstorms. Why are we thinking that? Why are we imagining that we're going to get there and we have to bring clothes and get ready for that rain? And what if there's a hurricane and what if this happens? Why do we do that? Why don't we make up the good story? Why don't we say, can't wait to go on this vacation, bring in all my beautiful outfits? See, I really do believe that thoughts become things. And I really do believe that we attract all of that good just by using our heads and making up the real story, just by putting that in our mind. And then it just sounds like, okay, well, you're just making an excuse for if something goes wrong. But if that isn't what occurs, then we take the knowledge that we have in our head and move forward. We find the solution for that. But it makes me feel so much more empowered. It's not a matter of feeling better. It's a matter of being empowered. It's a matter of thinking, that's my plan now. I have 20 years, then I get my rings like Miss Posen, and then I see where I am at 95. And now, when I think about that coming forward, it's a really happy thought. I think of that now, and I feel like I'm ready to take on the world. I'm ready to be in what they call the chapter 3. Why do we listen to people tell us that can't happen? Why do we listen to people that tell us we can't accomplish what we want to accomplish? Why do they even care? Why are they telling us all of these things? I read a phrase once that said, instead of worrying about what I'm doing, worry about why you care about what I'm doing. So why do we care about what somebody else is thinking? Especially us gals. I think we've been raised to feel we need to fit in, to be popular. We want to be the girl that gets chosen in love, especially coming from my generation. But we don't have to care about what anybody else thinks. We don't have to talk to people whose opinion we don't value. We don't have to buy into other people's ideas that we don't want to buy into. That sounds so remedial, but how many of us really own those sentences? We can simply be ourselves and create our world. And I'm here to tell you that we can create in 20 years, not only the things we've dreamt about, but maybe even the things we were put on the planet to do. Do you realize how much time that is to do the things you really want to do, to improve your body, to improve your health, to take the trip, to write the book, to dream a new dream, to see a new day, simply to attempt something new, maybe to meet someone new? When I was a child, there was a saying, today is the first day of the rest of your life. I think it was attributed to Marlo Thomas. It could be, but it doesn't matter. It's a great quote. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. So you can wake up tomorrow and say that. Today is the first day of the rest of my life. Every day is a new beginning. So what are you going to do with that? And it's as simple as that. And that applies to any age. What are you going to do with that? Whose rules are you going to live by? Whose rules are you going to be defined by? Do you have a deep concern for what people expect of you? Or are you going to be defined about what you know is in your heart? Are you going to be defined by what you know is in your soul and who you know is in your soul? You know, that's a quest for me, always uncovering and discovering who's in there. Who am I really? Perhaps it's time to discover exactly what you're made of. Seriously, what you're made of. Positivity and possibilities. See you next time here at the Wish House.